Hi. So, by request, there will be a limited sale of BPS and BPS inspired items. The link is below in the description for both those in North America and in Europe. And for those in Asia and Australia, it is suggested to use the US link. Also, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you that watch and support this channel. It is appreciated more than you can know. So, thanks, and please enjoy the video that starts right now. This is how it ends, or is this the beginning? Whites, under extreme international pressure from Western nations like the UK, the US, and Australia, voted back in 1992 to end apartheid in South Africa, and in doing so, handed the ready-made country they had built over to the black majority with the assurances that the new rainbow nation that would be created would have a place for all South Africans, no matter the skin color. Now, 20-something years later, the country has one of the highest murder rates in the world, one of the highest HIV rates in the world, infrastructure that is degrading to the point where essential services like water in large cities like Cape Town may not even be able to be distributed in the near future because of systemic failure and corruption in the political class. By any metric, South Africa looks set to join the rest of sub-Saharan Africa as its newest failed state. However, news that the nation will now amend its constitution to allow the seizure of white-owned land without compensation will almost certainly accelerate the collapse of the country. Zimbabwe 2.0 incoming. Sub-Saharan Africa, since the end of European colonialization, has been one of mass famine, blood-soaked coups d'etats, tribal, ethnic, and civil wars, as well as genocide. And all of this is set against a backdrop where much of the continent is kept on life support via foreign aid. And this in turn is fueling the growing migrant crisis, slamming into Europe via those fleeing their failed societies and producing one of the largest migration waves in human history. And this is very true of Zimbabwe. 3 to 4 million Zimbabweans, the greater part of the nation's skilled workforce, has left the country in response to the man-made catastrophe engineered by Robert Mugabe, the Marxist guerrilla-turned-politician who came to power in 1980. And in the following years, Zimbabwe's economy steadily deteriorated and then simply collapsed. Living standards declined, life expectancy was reduced, average wages lowered, and unemployment exploded, and hyperinflation destroyed the value of the nation's currency. During his tenure, Mr. Mugabe made many decisions that choked off the economic progress of the country. Most critical of these decisions that turned the nation from the breadbasket of Africa to a country that needed to import food was the stripping of white farmers of their land and handing it over to members of the black population who, in many cases, had no farming experience. As the nation's economy disintegrated, Mugabe started blaming the country's economic problems on Western countries and the white Zimbabwean minority, and he called on supporters to, quote, strike fear into the hearts of the white man, our real enemy. And it would seem that their neighbor South Africa has learned nothing from the failure that is Zimbabwe and looks dead set on making the exact same mistakes, foremost among them the racial theft of land that created the Mugabe disaster.
I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I'm saying to you, we have not called for the killing of white people, at least for now. I can't guarantee the future.
Yeah, but I mean, you'd understand somebody watching that, especially as it gets shared on Twitter, they freak out. It sounds like a genocidal call.
Cry babies. Cry babies.
I'm not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now.
I can't give a guarantee of the future, especially when things are going the way they are.
Subtext.
Especially if things are going the way they are, there will be a revolution in this country, I can tell you now. There will be an unled revolution. An unled revolution is the highest form of anarchy.
The Economic Freedom Fighters is basically a radical black nationalist party with Marxist leanings and is the third largest party in the parliament and has for some time demanded that white land and businesses be seized by the black majority. Its leader, Julius Malema, who was expelled from the ANC, has urged black South Africans to take the land from white invaders, or what he calls Dutch thugs. In the South African parliament, he has explained that his party wanted to unite black people in South Africa, and to do this, it would take the expropriation of white land without compensation. And given the statements by Julius Malema, the leader of the EFF, that whites will be slaughtered unless they give up all land in South Africa, well, this sentiment is being amplified by the announcement made on the 31st of July by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa that the government will initiate a parliamentary process to enshrine in the constitution a proposed amendment paving the way for land grabs without compensation. At stake, not only for whites but for all South Africans, is that expropriation will most likely deal a heavy blow to commercial farming in that country and precipitate a food production crisis just like the one that struck Zimbabwe when it unleashed the similar land grabs against white farmers in 1999 to 2000. Now, one of the chief talking points used by the likes of Mr. Malema and the EFF is the term white monopoly capital. It is a blanket term used in much the same way as white supremacy, and it is used to justify the seizure of white South Africans' property. Interestingly, however, it is a term to be said to have been created by the UK-based PR firm Bell Pottinger, and with the express intention of inciting racial tensions in South Africa in order to distract attention from a powerful family with links to the former President Jacob Zuma. But either way, this targeting of whites in South Africa looks very much like a rerun of Mugabe's Zimbabwe and its use of the white minority as a scapegoat for the deteriorating economic conditions in that country. Being blamed for all of the nation's problems, and with the targeted ethnic murders, the discriminatory affirmative action laws that favor the majority, and the continual threats of genocide and land confiscation by their own government, it is instructive that countries like Canada, headed by the former substitute drama teacher Justin Trudeau, has in late 2017 refused asylum requests by white Afrikaners because concerns for their children or their mothers being assaulted and raped was, in the Canadian Immigration and Refugee Board's words, based on patently unreliable racist propaganda. In contrast to Canada's belief that it is ridiculous, inconceivable, and racist to even consider the possibility for white people to be in need of sanctuary, and that whites will never be accepted as refugees no matter what the circumstances are, earlier this year the Australian and Russian governments signaled that they may be willing to open their doors to South African farmers if they decide to emigrate from the country. And similar to Zimbabwe before it, about 500,000 white South Africans have already left, and many that have left were skilled professionals, tradespeople, entrepreneurs, and experienced corporate employees. But there are still 4.5 million whites in the country that are living under threat, and many of those are unable or simply unwilling to leave. And for those that are staying, this constitutional amendment is viewed by many in the South African white minority as something that can and will further incite violence against farmers. It would appear that South Africa is staring into the abyss. The country managed to stay together for about 25 years with enormous international support, economic investment, and guidance to push the multicultural success story, which kept the economy afloat. But with the rand losing value, the massive corruption throughout society, the unemployment, and now the percolating racial tensions, the straw that looks to break the proverbial back of South Africa will be the confiscation without compensation of minority white-owned property. And with no help coming, with very few nations signaling they will take them in, being told that they are racists and bigots for even trying to protect their families from rape, torture, and murder, and with their own government against them, what is most important is getting information like this out about what is happening to this persecuted minority that is constantly being threatened with violence by the majority group of their country. Given the almost collaborative media silence that attends the ongoing disintegration of post-apartheid South Africa, it is astounding that even the far-left controlled media outlet, the BBC, is now asking if white people even have a future in Africa. Nigerian-born novelist Chigozie Obioma recently published an article in Foreign Policy with the provocative headline, "There are no successful black nations." In the article, he examines the failure of black nations to create functioning societies and also goes on to make a compelling argument about the need for a successful First World African nation, which Obioma describes as essential for uplifting the dignity of Africans on the home continent as well as in the diaspora. Post-apartheid, post-Mandela South Africa had this chance to become the successful nation that Africans desperately need, and it still has a choice. At this critical juncture, expropriation with a racial twist will only revive the spirit of apartheid, but this time in reverse. It is, for all intents and purposes, institutionalized racism, something I think everyone can agree with is wrong, and if implemented, will most likely fracture the nation into racial and tribal conflict. And in the end, what is left of South Africa will join the rest of sub-Saharan Africa as its newest failed state. Is this how it ends, or is this the beginning? Whatever it is, it's also a very big wake-up call for those that see any constitution as unassailable and unchangeable. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. Also follow Black Pigeon on the usual social media. Till next time.